2014, a live online class with Rob Ragazine, hosted by the Awakened Radio Network. When? January 25th, 2014 through April 5th. It's a bi-weekly class for 6 weeks. What time? 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Where? The comfort of your own home. Do you know what your dreams mean? Do you know how they might be offering guidance and direction to you? Can you use your dreams to learn more about current or past issues? Want to find out? Rob Ragazine will bring you his insights, his intuition, years of research and personal one-on-one with clients into a bi-weekly class that lasts 1.5 hours here on the Awakened Radio Network. You can find out how to interpret, how to understand the messages in your dreams. Come to awakenedradio.net today. Look at the top where it says Exploring Dreams. Get all the information and register to find out dream analysis, dream symbols, dream fragments, forgiveness, health, abundance, meditation, stress, dream drama, archetypes, all manner of information that you need. Step-by-step guidance, plus a lot of fun in a live classroom setting where you interact with other students as well as Rob as he walks you through the definitive, the best explanation of what your dreams mean and teaches you to interpret your dreams for your own wisdom and your own answers. Remember, awakenradio.net. You look towards the top of the page under the banner where it says Exploring Dreams. Get all the details, register, and sign up for Exploring Your Dreams in 2014 and beyond. Invite your family, your friends to join you.
Hello and welcome to Evolutionary Women Radio Show with Pernilla Lillerose, where authentic feminine power is making a difference in the world. Hello everyone and welcome to Evolutionary Women Radio. This is Pernilla Lillerose, your host, and I'm so glad to be back again. I was gone for a couple of weeks visiting my family in Denmark and could not make it live on the show, but I hope you enjoyed the rebroadcasts. It's really great to be back here on the last day of the year. And I am so happy to introduce my guest today. You may remember several months ago, I was thinking about quitting. had kind of come to a place where it's like, well, do I really want to do it? The inspiration was a little low. But then I got really inspired when I met Sara and her husband, Danny, at a class at UC Santa Cruz. And I felt this strong movement inside. That's usually how it goes when I ask my guests. But this was particularly strong to ask if Sara would like to be on my show. And initially, Sara said yes, but the dates didn't work out. So I just thought, I'll wait, maybe at the end of the month. And then several months have gone by, and I actually really got inspired again. And I have so enjoyed the last several months of my radio show again. So it keeps going, and then I'm sure it was all for a reason because I kept going. And Sara Nelson, my guest today, it finally made it. She has a very busy schedule, and when I read her bio, you will understand why. So before I say hello to Sara, I just want to introduce her through the little bio or the long bio that I have here, and then I don't want to waste a lot of time on me talking. I really want to get into the subject of truth and love. How does truth and love, the true spirit of activism, which we are going to talk about today. And when I met Sara and her husband Danny at UC Santa Cruz, I was just so deeply, deeply touched by the incredible work that they're bringing to the world. The things, I can't even really say a whole lot about it. I want to leave that with Sara. But it touched me so deeply, and I realized that both Sara and Danny, they have something really deep inside of them that's strong and connected to something bigger than themselves, to be able to move in the world like that and make these changes and really show up to what is true in the most amazing, devastating circumstances, actually. So let me just introduce you here formally to Sara. Sara Nelson is the former founder and executive director of the Christic Institute in Washington, D.C., and she is the current executive director of the Romero Institute in Santa Cruz. She's the former executive director of the 1999 State of the World Forum, founded by President Gorbachev and Jim Garrison. She is a former television reporter, anchor person, and TV series producer for cable television, and graduate in anthropology from UC Berkeley. Sara is also the former chair of the National Labor Committee of the National Organization for Women, where she launched the Karen Silkwood investigation and project, which resulted in 2 groundbreaking congressional hearings, a Hollywood movie starring Meryl Streep, and a legal victory that stopped the ordering of all nuclear plants from 1979 until recently. She's a leader recognized by the California Commission on the Status of Women. The Christic Institute is known for its major legal and organizing projects, such as the 3 Mile Island case, the Greensboro Massacre case, the Sanctuary Defense case, the Eddie Carson case, and the Iran-Contra case, which exposed the Iran-Contra scandal and constitutional crisis. This is a big one. So I kind of want to maybe leave it at that and just share with you that the Romero Institute in Santa Cruz is actually doing a lot of work for the Lakota Project, which is what they are very much involved in right now, and are leading on the ground for the 9 tribes in South Dakota. There's so much information, and you can go to lakotalaw.org if you want to know more about it after you hear Sara talk some about all these things that she's involved in. So, dear Sara, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Evolutionary Women Radio.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm honored to be with you.
It's wonderful. And, Sara, I know you have so much to share with the women and men here. And I'm just looking at wow, where shall we start? And one place I usually like to start with all my guests is maybe you can share a little bit about how you got to do what you have been doing for so many months, for so many years. Was there something, back when that happened to you that you realized you saw in the world that made you really start taking action in the world the way you are today? Is there anything you can share about that? Please do.
Well, there was a moment during the Karen Silkwood case, which was a case about a young woman working in a plutonium nuclear plant in Oklahoma. That's when I was the chair of the Labor Committee of NOW, and she was exposing the health hazards at the plant for both the workers and the public, because there were a lot of them. And her house was completely contaminated with plutonium. Even it was on the food in the refrigerator and all over the place. and she was completely contaminated, and she was gathering documents and evidence inside the plant of not only health hazards but of missing plutonium, and there were 40 pounds of bomb-grade plutonium missing that could have made several nuclear bombs the size of Hiroshima. And so she was going documents to a New York Times reporter, and she was working with her union, the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union. And on the way to the meeting, her car was run off the road, and she was killed, and all of her documents disappeared from the car. And as feminists, at that time, this was in the 70s, this happened to her in 1974. We were very suspicious. We felt, when you look at all of the evidence in that particular situation, and Ms. Magazine and the New York Times, and also the Rolling Stone magazine had done several articles, and that she had probably been run off the road and killed. So we began a campaign all over the country with now chapters pouring in letters to the Congress asking for a congressional investigation of this. The reason it came to me is because she was active in her local union, and our committee was working on the importance of unions for working women to help raise their wages and protect them in terms of health and safety, etc. Union contracts are helpful to workers in a variety of ways, and we were all concerned about the difference in the wages that women and men, the disparity in the wages, and so we were looking at various ways that union contracts could be extremely helpful to working women. So anyway, this issue came to me because she was a union leader in her local union, and our committee took the position that, if a woman union leader stands up for and is a leader and stands up for her people, and the public and gets killed, what are we going to do about it? As women, are we going to insist that we find out what happened to her? And so that's what we did. And the Congress was surprised at the number of handwritten letters coming into them from all over the country, and we were working with allies inside the Congress, and we ended up with a couple hearings, and eventually I met Dan Sheehan, who has been my partner and my husband and the father of my children for 35 years, and I met him after the hearings because we were looking for an attorney, and he's a constitutional attorney, and he agreed to file the lawsuit for us. At that time, we had no money to hire people, and he was working with the Jesuit headquarters, and he agreed to file it, and we were able to get it filed before the statute of limitations, and then it became a major litigation and investigation that ultimately, as you mentioned in the bio, the rulings that were made in the court hearing and in the trial prevented any more ordering of nuclear plants for over 30 years because the liability was set so high that the insurance companies didn't want to insure them. But to answer your question, in the course of this Silkwood case, I had this moment. It's very hard. These projects are very hard work, and they don't pay very much money at all. I mean, activists very often live on very little, and they're driven by a desire to address injustice. Mm-hmm. And I believe that most activists, particularly ones that do this work over a long period of time, are driven primarily by love, which is something that Che Guevara said, and a lot of people laughed when he said it. But I think it is true that the force of love and caring for other people is the driving force for working to expose the truth and achieve some justice and change to make things more fair. There was a point in the Silkwood case where I went through a sort of a self-questioning period, and I was asking myself, why am I doing this? Why am I working, living on, like $400 a month, I think I was living on at that point, and why am I doing this work? I have a degree. There are probably other things I could be doing with my life that would be more materially sustainable. And I after doing some real thinking about it, I realized it wasn't because I was a feminist, and it wasn't because I was interested in unions, and it wasn't. What it was my original training, in Sunday school in the Lutheran Church in North Dakota. I realized that as a child, I had learned certain principles and came to understand certain ethical principles and had a relationship with the divine, and that was really what was behind the choices that I was making, and the inspiration that I would periodically receive, which was like guidance. I mean, I didn't have all those words for it when I was younger, but I knew when I was being asked from the other dimension to do something, and I always took it very seriously. I mean, I knew that we had to do the Karen Silkwood case. The night that another Now woman brought me all the materials and I read them at night, we already had 9 other projects going on, and so it wasn't that we didn't have anything to do. The committee was already kind of pretty overextended, but when she brought me the materials about Karen Silkwood and I read them about 2 in the morning, I finally got to them, and I just, even though I knew nothing about nuclear, I could feel in my heart that the universe, that the Creator was saying, this is, I'm giving this to you. I want you to do this. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment actually when I was propped up in bed reading all these materials where I suddenly got this overwhelming sense all of a sudden that Karen Silkwood, who was dead at that time, I mean, she'd been run off the road and killed, that her presence was in the room. Mm. And I knew, I looked right at that point in the air, really, where I knew she was, and I realized that what she was saying is, if the women don't do something about this, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to get done about it. And I had read, I was reading, and I could tell that the union was running out of ideas of how to get the Congress to deal with this, and because nuclear plants are major institutions, and they're regulated by the federal government, and there's congressional oversight involved in those facilities. So anyway, the point is that that kind of spiritual inspiration and guidance has really been there as long as I can remember, and when it comes, I take it seriously. I believe that we are people here in the physical plane, but we have souls, and we have higher selves, and we have guides that help us, that are not only our guides from whatever spiritual dimensions we're working with. It could be Hindu, it could be Christian, it could be Jewish, it could be Buddhism, it could be indigenous. But the whatever the soul, it's whatever the community of saints are that we're working with, could be ancestors, that we can communicate with them on some level, and we can receive guidance from them. And then there are the great ones, there are the great ones like Buddha and Christ and others who have come to teach us and to give us principles that we can call upon when we're trying to make decisions. And so I just think that I came to realize at this certain moment during the Silkwood case, I realized that my primary motivation was my spiritual motivation. And it was interesting because I began to intend, so to speak, or to pray that I would meet a partner that would have both of these characteristics as well, both the characteristic of being spiritually grounded and the characteristic of being in service to justice and activism, because it's a calling, and it's something everyone can do, and it's something that some people do all the time, full time, and I was one of those people. And I was hoping to meet someone that combined these things, because most of my friends were one or the other. And it was interesting because it wasn't too long after that, a few months, that I met Dan Sheehan, who has been a partner for 35 years. So that was wonderful, because we've done this work together for decades.
Sarah, I keep getting goosebumps with a lot of the things you share. It's like it just really deeply touches me, because you're coming. What you guys have done is, most people have not been involved in those kind of things, and it seems like it has been such an innocent entry point for both of you, where there was an injustice you heard about and you couldn't help but doing something about it, and suddenly you find yourself in these huge organizations, and these huge things are being exposed that you would never even have dreamed about, and bingo, here you are. You can't just step out, right? You need to complete it. And it seems like you were just, it's like been one thing after another. When I read Danny's book, The People's Advocate, it felt like, well, how can one person be involved in that in one single lifetime? It almost seems impossible. So I do sense that there is a much greater purpose of you definitely being together and doing the work you do, and you have such a strong connection to the divine. And I'm not quite sure, there's so many things, there's so many ways we could go with this. I have a few things that I kind of wrote down, and I want to let you take the lead here and see what inspires you most of these things that I'm going to put out to you now, so we really get, the juice from you that feels most alive. The title, Truth and Love, you talked about that already. I know that a lot of people, they actually bring anger and fear and emotions to these things that are happening in the world, but you bring that depth of truth and love, and I do feel that is where true transformation can come from. So that's one thing you can maybe share a little more about. And then the other one is that, in one of the classes Danny talked about, and also in his book, talking about the need to become disillusioned. And I thought that was so important. That feels like, as long as we are not disillusioned, we keep trying to fight and criticize and judge all the things that are happening, not realizing that we need to get out beyond that and see it from a much bigger perspective in order to be able to make a change. So with only 5 minutes to our break here at 11:30, I see if there's anything in that motivates you to share something about.
Well, I think that well, there's a lot in what you've said, but
I know.
Well, one thing I want to say is that I have had many, many, many moments of anger and frustration in these cases, in these projects, in this one in South Dakota right now, with the suffering and the oppression that has continued to be rained down upon the Lakota people. The what otherwise known as the Great Sioux Nation. But ultimately, we are all working with our egos, and we're all struggling every day to be in a higher state of consciousness, one that we can see, identify, and sometimes we can be there, and then sometimes we are in a lower state of consciousness. And we're always, all of us, working with this all the time, and we have to have patience with ourselves because something like 95 or more % of what our response to things is our unconscious. It's not in our conscious mind, and that's why people meditate and try to get more consciousness, more awareness over what is coming up from their unconscious and how to manage that and not let it just run things blindly. And I've recently gone through a lot of anger about South Dakota, but I've managed to kind of transform that into another way of holding it. And I think one of the most important principles in our lives is to realize that we're all like children of God. We're all like these beautiful flowers of God, of the Creator, of the creative force that is bringing forth life everywhere on this planet constantly. And in this journey, we are either going to be, bringing light and beauty and love and solutions, practical solutions that will actually make things better. We're either doing that, or we're in a more negative state. And the negative state, can be frustration and anger, and it can take up a lot of energy and keep us from focusing on what the solutions really are. And so we have to choose. We have to choose what is our flower going to do. Mm-hmm. We have this gift of life, and what are we going to contribute? And it doesn't do us a whole lot of good to stay in a state of frustration and anger, even though it may be justified. But it doesn't do any good. And so it doesn't bring, and I believe, and I think the quantum physics are just kind of supporting this kind of perspective, that what we put into the field creates reality. So if we are putting in, we have to think and think about what are we going to put in, what are we going to contribute to the reality that exists in this whole field where we live on planet Earth. And are we going to put good things in? Are we going to put solutions in? Are we going to put the frequencies of love and the virtues, etc., or are we going to put in frequencies that are actually negative and destructive? And we all have the power of this choice in our hands, and it turns out to be, I think, huge. Because if you just think about the planet as even one big circle, one big field, and think about all the, X number of billion people, and they're all putting certain frequency into that field, obviously the more people that are putting in the frequency of love and solutions and patience and caring into that field, the field becomes another color. Slowly becomes another color. And it's not the color of violence and anger and suffering and pain and oppression and injustice. And so we have that power.
Sarah, we're almost at the break, and I just want to say I could not agree with you more. I love how you said that. Yes, we need to raise the frequency, and we need to meet all the parts in ourselves that are still, unconscious or in darkness, and collectively, if we can do that, it's so beautiful how you share this and live it. So we are going to continue. We're going to go on a break now, and then we're going to continue this wonderful subject when we come back.
Cause we're awakened, you won't get to sleeping through the fight, and like we're all eyes open, showing our inside and light so bright. We are awakened, come.
I'm Donna Devane, station owner here at the Awakened Radio Network, and I'd like to ask you for your help. Would you consider helping Awakened Radio Network move into 2014 in a brand new, bigger, more exciting way? Live streaming TV in addition to our live streaming radio. If you would love to give something back to the station that gives you the tools for self-empowerment so that you can do your own healing and your own work, well, then head on over to www.gofundme.com Awakened Radio. That's gofundme.com/Awakened Radio. Your donations can help us move into 2014 bigger, better than we've done for the past 2 years. Please help us out. Consider making a donation. And after donating, please use your social networks, Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, all of them to share gofundme.com/Awakened Radio. We've done this much together. Just think what we can do if each one of us will invite 10 people to come and support the Awakened Radio Network. Thank you so much. I'm Donna Devane, the Barefoot Guru, and as always, I love you, and I remind you, love yourself well. Peace.
Welcome back to Evolutionary Women Radio, where authentic feminine power is making a difference in the world. Thank you for joining and listening. This is your host, Pernilla Little-Rose, and this show is brought to you by Women Standing for Love. Welcome back. Yes, my friends, welcome back to Evolutionary Women Radio, and my guest today is Sara Nelson. Before we continue, I just want to remind you again, if you want to check out more about the work that Sara is involved in, you can go to her website, or the website where she works from. It's www.lakotalaw.com.
Lakota Law. Lakota Law.
Yeah, Lakota Law. LAKOTALAW.org. So if you want to find out more about the amazing work that she's involved in, you can go there. And of course, if you want to learn more about the work that I do, which very much relates to what we're talking about, go to LillaRose.com, spelled LILLAROSE.com. And I always invite you and recommend for you to check out the book, my book called Imagine Being Kind to Yourself, which is available on my website. Because until we learn to be kind to ourselves, to listen to ourselves, to bring all the parts that we have disowned inside into wholeness, we are not going to raise the consciousness like we're trying to do if we just bring all these wounded, angry parts into the world, trying to change the world. We need to start inside. And there is so much help out there, and this book is one of the ways that will support you in that process. And of course, I always invite you back here on Evolutionary Women Radio Show, where this is the topic that we always talk about. So welcome back, Sara. I know we have a lot more to share here, so why don't you continue? We talked about, raising the frequency, and bringing love so we can raise in consciousness.
Yes, I was just, during your break, I was just thinking about an experience that I had, because, truth, in addition to love, truth, and of course the issue of justice, these frequencies are very, very central to activism, and I realize, truth, some people's truth is different than other ones, other people's truth, and how does one know the difference? And for instance, I can give you an example. In South Dakota, one person might say very disparaging and ugly things about the indigenous people there because their truth is very limited, and they don't see the beauty of people who are different than they are, and because they have a very narrow idea of what reality is. It's not holistic. It's not encompassing. And so how does one know what is really true? And I think it reminds me of an experience I had once with it was a major kind of truth experience, and I was sitting with my relative, my cousin, and she had a friend there who was experienced at some of the techniques that are learned at the Psychic Institute in Berkeley, California. And he said, well, would you all like to do the exercise with the spoon? And I said, okay. I didn't know what it was. And so she went to her drawer where her silverware was, and she got a bunch of spoons and passed them out to us. And he began this meditation with us that was really kind of slowing down the first three chakras in making them go backwards so that by making them go backwards, then they got slowed down and getting all grounded down into the earth, and then starting to clean the heart chakra. And then at a certain point, after this process had gone on, and I was just doing exactly what he said. That's all I was doing, was following him with complete attention and doing exactly what he said. And then he said, okay, now there's this golden liquid light that is coming in through your crown chakra. It's coming in from the universe, and it's coming in through your crown chakra. It's going through your heart. It's going down through your arms. And all of a sudden, I realized the spoon felt like chewed gum. It was all soft. Huh. And I just twirled it. And it went around 3 times. and it ended up with this three twirly things in it. And I was like astounded. But what it did is it proved to me that it was true, that there is this frequency and this light that is available to us. And then I understood why some people can heal other people. It isn't that they heal other people. It's that this frequency that comes through them, they get out of the way so that this frequency can come through them, and it can heal people. It can affect molecules. It can affect the molecules of the spoon. And it can affect the molecules in another person's body. And it wants only to, it is pure love. It is pure love, and it wants only to heal and to give love. And so now, I didn't go from there to, studying that or doing that. I continued with my own path, which is justice work and activism and service on that level. But I was so thankful that I had that experience, because there was never any doubt, ever, that this love and this light and this force is available to us. And so the question is, so what happens, I think, to all of us is when we're doing something, when we see that we're being asked or something is put in front of us, it comes to us, and it's something we could do to help make things better, we know when that happens. We know when that happens. And then it's a question of how closely can we stay in alignment with this force that will help us do whatever it is we need to do. It will help us take action to make something better. It could be something in our neighborhood. It could be something in our family. It could be something in our school. It happens that Danny and I do work that is national and global a lot of times. But it's all the same, all the way from the family and the neighborhood all the way up to the global stage. It's all the same issues because it's all the human family. So the human family creates problems, and the human family can work with the creative force in the universe to solve them and to change the policies, change the structures, change the laws, change the things that are what we call systemic sin. They're systemic injustice. They continue to produce pain and suffering and injustice. If we change those things, if we change those things at the level of the laws and the policies and the programs, we also have to change consciousness, and that's why you're doing your radio program, because that has to happen too. Because you can change a policy, but if the people who are implementing the policy are thinking in a way from the past, they won't be able to implement the policy the way it needs to be implemented. So it's on several levels, but the question is, if while we're working, at whatever level we're working, if while we're working, we're feeling very out of sorts and unhappy and things aren't right and we're under tremendous anxiety and stress, we have to look at that, because that is not the frequency that this creative force works with. So we have to kind of review what we're doing, rethink it, and try to get in alignment with this powerful frequency of love, which can heal and change anything. It's infinite. It's absolutely infinite. And we're so tiny. Mm-hmm. And we're so unbelievably blessed that it's available to all of us, every single person. It's available to all of us. It wants only to be available to all of us. And we stay separate by putting our little wall around ourselves and thinking that somehow we're doing everything inside of our own little head and in our own little bundle of emotions that we've accumulated for however long we've been in this plane this time. And when we forget that we all of that is available to us to help us. And so I'm not sure that I answered your question. That's what I started thinking about.
I know there's a reason I wanted you on my show, Sarah, because, what you're talking about right now, even though it may not have been my question, I really don't care. It's so inspiring to hear somebody talk about it the way you are, because we all need to hear that over and over so we can finally trust that this liquid love or divine energy, whatever we want to call it, that it is real, and we can start focusing more on that than that era that we're moving out of now, that old paradigm where it felt like it wasn't available, right? We were on our own, we were separate, we had to fight our way, we had to compete and compare with others. And now it's like, no, leave it behind and now step into this new, I love the liquid light, or the golden liquid light, whatever. It's like, let's take that right now, because it's here. But we need to be reminded, and to hear somebody like you talk about it, and then understanding that that's what you've been bringing to all these things that you've been involved in. It's like, now it's real. Now it becomes alive. It's not just a story in a Bible or something. It's real.
Yes, it's real for each one of us every single day, and for our work in terms of structural solutions, because we work on structural solutions, an example of this is the problem in South Dakota is that all of the children, the Lakota people are losing their children again in large numbers on a regular basis, because although everyone thought that the old boarding school problem had stopped, and that the church school program had stopped, and that they'd stopped taking them at the age of 5 and keeping them away from their families, for their entire school life, and, cutting their hair and making them have English names and beating them if they spoke Lakota, and all those things that we thought were in the past are actually, there's a new version of it now, and it's the Department of Social Services in South Dakota just keeps taking the children. And the reason we got involved is because grandmothers, who are by law supposed to be able to raise their grandchildren, if the parents are having any kind of difficulty doing it, the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles are, by law, the Indian Child Welfare Act, it's mandated that the children would go with their relatives, because Indian children do much better when they are raised in Indian families. And there was an entire year of congressional hearings on this topic that resulted in the Indian Child Welfare Act, but it's being blatantly violated every single day in South Dakota, and it's very painful, and there's a pain that happens in people's hearts that goes on for the rest of their life when they lose their children or they lose their grandchildren and they cannot see them and they don't know what's happened to them. And so we've been working on this, and we've been prepared to file a lawsuit against the state. We've been preparing to do that for some time. But what we began to realize is that in addition to that, there is another solution. And the solution is that all of the Indian child, child and family services money that comes from the federal government to the states, that in the case of South Dakota for certain, instead of that money going to the Department of Social Services, and the actual total budget for that every year is about $100 million a year, and it sort of is a money maker. It's a way to bring income into a state, and of course, the more Indian children that you take, the more money comes in, and the more that, and you can receive as much as $75,000 per child, because you make them all special needs children, which is what happens there, and then you can receive upwards of $76,000 per child, and that's a lot of money. And not all of that money goes to Indian children, but they are 65% of the kids who are in the child welfare system, even though they're only 13% of the population. So there's a lot of taking of Indian children going on. And so what we've realized is what needs to happen in terms of a policy solution is that the federal government needs to provide, and these grants are already available, but they need to provide planning grants to all 9 tribes in South Dakota to plan their own child and family service programs, so they become their own DSS. They become their own Department of Social Services. And they decide what the standards are for foster care homes, and they know the families, and they pick the families who can be the kinship care families or the foster care families. And it is something that they then have tribal sovereignty over, finally, what happens to their children and their families, and instead of their kinship system being shattered over and over and over again and broken apart. And this, of course, has happened in Australia, it's happened in the United States, it's happened in other places, it happened in South Africa, the same kind of a system of breaking up indigenous people. And so we're working now, we're working very hard on getting this new system in place, and it involves working with several agencies in Washington, D.C. It involves working with all the 9 tribes in South Dakota, and if that solution can begin to be in place, and we're getting step by step closer and closer, then it could change history. It could literally change history. A problem that began in 1889 with the taking of the children, with the white colonial powers thinking that if they take the children, they can the Indian people and make them all like us and get rid of their culture. But it hasn't happened because they're strong, and the culture has remained because they want it. They want to remain Indian, and they want to have their own culture, and they don't want to get assimilated. And instead of respecting that and respecting the differences between people and between cultures and honoring those differences and lifting up the positive aspects of these differences, there's been this terrible to destroy them, really. It's slow genocide is what it is. And so we're working very hard to get this new system in place, which would change something that, in a fundamental structural way, change the structures that were put in place, that began to be put in place in 1889, into ones that are more healing, that are more loving, that are more appreciative, and that are more grounded in the truth that the indigenous people themselves experience, not just a more narrow truth that perhaps a more reactionary person might have about who they are and what their value is. And it is ultimately spiritual because well, I was thinking about this today. I know as a child we used to, in Lutheran Sunday school, we used to sing this song about how Jesus loves the little children, loves them everywhere, red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in His sight. And I mean, I took that very seriously as a little child, and the Indian children, all the children in the world are sacred. They're all like these sacred little flowers that are, the future, and we cannot, Danny and I just felt we could not take action to deal with and address and expose and look for solutions to this ongoing kind of atrocity that is going on there, and it's going on in other states too with the indigenous people, but it's particularly bad in South Dakota, which they sometimes refer to as the Mississippi of the North. Mm-hmm. And
it's that love thing again, right? You couldn't help it. It's that love that drives you to take action. We're coming slowly to the end of the show, and I mean I could have you on here probably for 5 hours. You have so much to share, but just for the sake of the time here, I wonder. There was somebody who asked the question here, what's the importance of us in this quote-unquote spiritual community being socially aware and active? Now, I think that's pretty obvious for a lot of people, but if you have something like, maybe 3 takeaways, you can round up our talk here today, and what can people do? Because there's so much out there, and of course we need to find that which moves something in us, which resonates in us. And but maybe you can give some gems or some takeaways for the listeners to walk away with some inspiration to start trusting and following that movement inside.
Yes, I do believe that we are guided, we are never alone, and if we listen to our heart. For me, it's always in my heart. My heart is always, if my heart is not at peace, then I know something isn't right. And when things are in alignment, then my heart is more peaceful. And so I follow that, but I believe that's true of all people. I think the heart center is a guide, sort of a guidepost, but also it's connected to our guides and to our higher self and to the Creator. So we have. I do believe we have to listen. And for some people, that means they meditate and that they develop that listening ability. For other people, it's prayer. For other people, it's just sitting quietly, having silence. It's sitting quietly and allowing themselves to feel what is right and what is not right for them. Because we cannot, all of us, do the same things. But we're being guided all the time to take action, to stand for what is right. It doesn't have to be global, like Iran-Contra was huge. It affected many continents. But it doesn't have to be global. It can be very immediate in your immediate area of your community. And I just think that when you're the one who's being asked to do something, because you have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the awareness, you may have the connections, you may have the money, you may have the resources, you may have some way, you have something that is needed to solve that problem, and you know it. It's important to act when you know it, because what happens is when people don't, is that they get kind of numb. If they don't respond and act, then they get more alive and more alive. But if they, from fear or something, they don't, they become kind of more numb. And I think the quickening of the spirit and the growing aliveness of us as flowers here requires that we take action when we're asked to. And we may not be asked, it may not be someone personally asking us in words, but it could be someone, it could be coming from the other dimension, just tapping us on the shoulder. Just tapping us on the shoulder. This is your assignment. This is something you can do. You can make a difference. And that, I think that's important to listen and to act when that happens.
Yeah, listening, learning to listen is, that's something we didn't learn at school. You know, we learned to listen to others. So that in itself is a chapter, which is exactly what I'm involved in, really helping specifically women but men to listen and how to listen and what to listen to, because we're so lost in the mind and the world and the shoulds, you know. So that is a big takeaway. Sarah, we have a few more minutes left, and I would like the listeners to know how they can get hold of you or connect with you if there's any way they want to be involved with some of the work you do. Would you like to share a little bit about your website or any way?
Oh, yeah, no, we would, we'd love to hear from people if they're interested in what we're doing. The most important way to communicate with us now is through the www.lakotalaw.org, because our Romero site, the Romero Institute, is the mothership, the nonprofit mothership, but I think the site is being worked on at the moment, and so the best way to connect is with Lakota Law, and we, and then there is also the People's Advocate book.
Yes.
People love this book, and they really do, and it's kind of a sweep of history, starting in the 60s with the Pentagon Papers case, the Watergate case, the Wounded Knee case in South Dakota with the Lakota people, the case against the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis down in Greensboro for killing a lot of demonstrators, and the case with Eddie Carthan, the first black mayor who was since the Reconstruction, who was the mayor in Mississippi, was falsely accused of murder. They were going to kill him until we were able to expose who really did the murder, and it wasn't Eddie, and they let him out. And then the Iran-Contra case and the big sanctuary case that involved the churches helping Salvadoran and Nicaraguan and Guatemalan refugees who were fleeing for their lives during the death squads, helping them come into the United States, and the government cracked down on the religious people who were helping them, and we did that case. And then we did the Iran-Contra case, which became a huge constitutional crisis exposed. And all these things are in this book, and it's possible to get the book at Amazon. It's called The People's Advocate. And it really, it's very helpful at understanding how this whole national security state apparatus has been developing. We're not
Sarah, I'm afraid we have a minute left, and I don't want to just have to be cut off here. So I will put the name and the Amazon link on the Facebook page if people want to go there. And for now, I just want to say thank you so much. What an amazing experience to be here with you, and boy, you have so much to share. I wish you could come back sometime, but thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you, Sarah, and I'm so grateful you took the time out, because I know you have a very busy schedule. So many blessings to you, and thank you to all the listeners, and I wish you all a wonderful entry into the new year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cause we're awakened, you won't catch us sleeping through the fight. And like we're all eyes open, showing our inside and light so bright. We are awakened, come and join our love, it's so right. If you could feel what we feel now, you'd be a leader filled with might. Cause we're